We have Hans Niemann on our screen. He is playing the tie breaks now against Arjun Erigaisi. They both lost in the quarterfinals and are now fighting for the fifth to eighth spots in the tournament freestyle chess in South Africa. And you can see Hans analyzing here. Let's have a look at the position. There's a knight, rook, bishop, knight, king, bishop, rook, and queen here. So basically the position has the two bishops, and there you see Arjun coming in, and Hans puts back the pieces saying that, hey, you saw my analysis. But they were studying the position, and white has two bishops and a king, which is in the original position when you compare it to standard chess. But apart from that, everything else is scrambled. G4, bishop G2 looks like an interesting idea. Also E4 makes a lot of sense. D4 as well to open it up. Knight coming out to B3 and C3, maybe E3. So quite an interesting position we have here. The players are ready. A handshake and 5 minutes plus 2 seconds increment. D4 by Arjun, opening up his bishop here. Hans goes G6, attacking the pawn immediately. The knight comes and defends. You see the adherence to the normal rules of chess, which is center control, development of pieces. Knight comes to C6, attacking here. You could very well push the pawn, but Arjun plays it solid with C3. Pawn comes up to D5. And now pawn to G4 played, attacking the pawn here, and it is defended. He goes knight to E3, once again defending as well as attacking, and Hans goes pawn to E5, goes very direct, sacrificing this pawn on D5. I believe takes, he wants to play bishop E6. BG2 played by Arjun, but now E4 would be very strong. He plays it, and G5 played by Arjun. He wants to maybe later go on to the F6 square. Bishop comes out to E6, pawn to F3, takes, and bishop takes. Very nicely done by Arjun here. This entire concept of pushing the pawn and then F3 was pretty cool. Long castle played, and now maybe bishop D2 and long castle makes sense. That's what Arjun does. He also plays his bishop here. Black knight is ready to jump into C4 once the knight on E3 moves. H6 played here to break the structure, and white goes H4, bolstering the pawns there. He plays bishop to D6, and now a very good idea is knight to G4, but he first long castles here. And somehow it seems like white's position is a little more harmonious because of these pawns on the king side gaining more space. King comes to B8. And by the way, there is a possibility to win the pawn here on D5. Is that something worth thinking? Maybe, but Arjun goes to G4. And maybe it's not a bad idea to take this, but rook G4, white would be better. So he goes knight C4. But this allows the knight to jump into F6. So maybe he should have played something else here by taking here and rook H8. But knight F6 now by Arjun, attacking the rook on G8. Takes on D2. Knight comes back and takes here. And this knight is very powerfully placed. If the rook moves here, already the D5 pawn is falling. You could take something more there. I mean, it's just better. So Hans has to now figure out a way from this mess that he is in, and he decides to take on G5. Arjun can take back on G5, or he can take the rook. Both seem okay. Thinks for a bit, and he takes on G8, and maybe now G takes H4. Not a bad idea. He does it. Wow, what a move. Because now the knight is trapped, and Arjun finds the best move. He plays E4. Hans takes, knight takes. Oh, he takes with the bishop, but knight E4 was much better here. Bishop takes, threatening here. But just bishop d7 finds it. What a play by Hans Niemann. He's showing that it's very difficult to beat him in this format where it requires creative play. Rook df1 played, attacking this pawn. Rook g8 is good, but he goes queen g8, naturally defending the pawn, but loses his key pawn on h4. Yeah, that was one quick decision by Hans, which seems to have backfired. Now bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, rook g6 is a tactic that has been missed by Hans, because if queen takes, the rook is hanging. He takes it. Beautiful. Takes back. And now boom, rook takes g6, queen e8 played. Hans has just 4 seconds on the clock, Arjun 50 seconds. He takes another pawn, a6 played, exchange and a pawn up, and he comes back, rook g1. Rook goes back to c8, and Arjun now brings his rook to e1, queen g8. All of a sudden the position becomes again very sharp, but difficult to understand what has happened here. Queen g5, he takes the pawn on a2. Rook a5 played, and now bishop a4 was an important move perhaps. But king c2, he goes bd7. Anything can happen here now. Knight jumps into e4, rook to e8. That's a mistake, because I think he missed that taking this is not going to work. King b3, now you take the rook, but check. King a7, and look at Arjun's speed here. He's seen it. Rook takes a6. If you take with the pawn, there is a mate here already. So he takes with the king, queen a8, takes on b7, king a5, and knight c4, checkmate. Beautiful mate there by Arjun Erigaisi, and he scores 1 full point here as we go into the second blitz game. Hans really fought so well there, but Arjun was the stronger player there. He found some amazing resources, and that was really a brilliant blitz game. And now for the next one will be very exciting, because Hans has to strike on demand with the white pieces. Arjun will have black, and yeah, the players are back here, and you can see Hans rearranging the pieces here. Let's have a look at the position. We have a rook, king, rook, queen, knight, bishops and knight, and you can see that the bishop here, these two bishops are well positioned. So c4, b4, maybe d4 as well. I think d4 makes so much sense. Just e4 opening up the position, h4, h5, not to be underestimated here. You can see Hans analyzing d4, d5, e4, and yeah, very interesting play here by, I mean, in general you would want to analyze it with some players outside, but Hans is white and maybe Magnus is the other player who has the white pieces, so they both are not going to analyze together. So Hans prefers to do it alone, and I think in a blitz game sometimes it's a good idea to prepare alone. They get 5 minutes before the game, and Arjun is back here in his blue jacket. Hans has the pink one. As the players get ready, and it's 5 minutes plus 2 seconds increment with this position. It's very exciting. There are always some very nice lights that dim, the music that plays to get into the groove, and we are ready to begin. Hans opens the game with d4. We have e5 here by Arjun, and Pontik's pawn is better, but he pushes. This is exactly what Magnus played with Sindarov as well. Knight comes out, and you have pawn to e4, which is a good move here. Yes, he pushes the pawn forward, pawn to e4. And Arjun goes c6, trying to break the structure. We have a4. Hans loves giving up pawns like this to build a center. He gives up the a pawn so that he can play pawn to b3 and then pawn to c4 as well. The knight goes back, pawn to c4, and for one pawn white has gained the space advantage. Excellent understanding shown by Hans. But the position is sharp. He goes knight e3, the best move, stopping any f5 ideas. Arjun takes. Difficult to say which pawn to take, cd or ed. I would take it with the c pawn as Hans does, because ed could have allowed the move f5. So cd played. And now Arjun plays bishop to d7. We have bishop d3. And f6. Opening up the queen's path here. The queen comes up. And knight to f7. We have h4. Look at Arjun's position. His pieces are a bit cramped here for space. Knight c2, a6. And Hans goes g3. Maybe the bishop can pop out to a7. He goes knight c8. And knight to a3 played. And pawn to b5. He comes back. He's now going to b4, trying to enter into the c6 square. Arjun goes knight e7, bishop to d2. Maybe trying to put the bishop on a5. Look at this, bishop c7. And the knight, rook goes to a1. Queen to c8. Maybe castles and get the rook to c1. White is already pressing here. Arjun needs to get his play rolling with f5. That's his only way to get counterplay. Knight b4. And a5 now very clearly you have to jump in. Knight c6, pawn c6, dc6 and rook c1. But he goes back. That was not a good move. Not a good move by Hans Niemann. Now there is b4. Pushes forward. Pawn to b4. Knight comes to c4. And now f5. Is it time already? No, the a5 pawn is hanging, but who cares? Arjun pushes forward. His position is like a springed coil here. It has a lot of potential. Knight e3 and now f4. A powerful strike. Plays it. Pawn to f4. Takes. E takes. Knight g2. And now f3. This would be an epic move by Arjun. Because after queen f3 you have knight e5 jumping in to the... He goes directly knight e5, which is also strong. Well, taking the knight seems very logical now. But the way in which Arjun has managed to open up the king. No, he takes here. Bishop g4 attacks the queen. Queen e3 and now knight check. Yes, a check comes in. King f1. Rook e8. Very smart. Very smart move. Threatening knight d5. It's very difficult to meet it. Need to go back queen c1. He goes bishop e2. And Arjun, boom, takes here. Queen d3. Now knight takes f4, attacks the queen. Does it. Knight takes on f4. The knight is hanging here. But a very good move now is short castle. Yes, he does it. Short castling here. And the knight is attacked if you take bishop f3. This is hanging. So he jumps here but misses. Bishop h3 checkmate, and Hans Niemann is checkmated. Rook h3, queen h3 is mate. And so Arjun actually checkmates Hans in both the games, winning 2-0 and now setting up a clash against Fabiano Caruana in the for the battle for the 5th place and to take home $40,000. A great game here by Arjun Erigaisi. Congratulations to him.